Hello, animation fans, and welcome to another iAnimate podcast. I'm your host, Larry Vasquez, and you're listening to episode 76. Joining me is my friend, my buddy, Rick Arroyo. How you doing, my friend?
Very good. How you doing, Larry?
Fantastic. We've got another great guest with us. Victor Chavez will be joining us. He has been in the industry for quite some time and one of our instructors. And so it's always neat to talk with an industry vet as well as one of our instructors. He's worked on Halo 4, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Destiny. And so it's just I think it'll be a cool podcast to talk with him about his experience working in the games industry.
Yeah, we're going to have fun with this one. For sure.
You got any comments?
Oh, yes. Really quickly to everyone who's listening, if you have questions, topics, or trends you want us to talk about, like really just hit us up, send an email to myself, to Larry, and we want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear your voice. Secondly, what we really believe is putting something positive and good for the community. So please make sure that you tell, any of your artist friends to listen, and because we also want them, to listen what we're saying and to tell us what they think. So tell them to subscribe, follow us, and that would be awesome. Let's put some really good, positive things out there.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's pull on Victor right now. Okay. We ready to jump in this, fellas?
Yeah, let's have fun, guys.
Let's do it. Let's do it. It's about animation. We love animation. Our listeners love animation. So, Victor, we really appreciate you jumping in on this podcast. It's a Saturday afternoon. So we know it's taking time from family and things like that, but we really appreciate you jumping in on this podcast with us.
Sure. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. And we love to get to talk with our instructors too. That's the nice part about it as well. Not only do we get to talk to people in the industry about where they're at, but also our instructors and that extra tie here. So let's jump into it. How did you get into animation? I was looking at your bio. It didn't seem like it was the first choice apparently, and kind of through a roundabout you got here.
It wasn't even my second choice. I would love to say that I wanted to be an animator since I was a kid.
Okay.
But I can't say that.
Okay.
You didn't know. That's why. That's it. It's just, you didn't know. It was a late bloom thing,
Yeah. It was, God, how far back do we go?
Don't date yourself, man. That's just that's asking for trouble. I'm just sharing with the wise,
I was working as a lead systems engineer at Microsoft.
Okay.
From 2000 to 2009, managing a team of engineers and database administrators that managed thousands of servers across multiple data centers and 24/7 support kind of thing. And in 2009, Microsoft had a big layoff. They laid off 5,000 people that year, 3,000 on one day.
Wow.
And my team was hit, like half of my team. The other half was moved to a different manager, and then they laid me off instead and with them. And then, so after 9 years, I took my severance pay and went, all right. I panicked for a couple of weeks.
I can imagine, yeah.
Talked to as many people as I could at Microsoft to see about what else I could get into, and then decided, this could be a good opportunity. And I started college as an art major. I almost went to CalArts, but it was just too much money at the time, and I was putting myself through school, and so I wanted to get back into doing something creative again, something artistic, but something with computers, because I'd really gotten into computers over like the last 20 years before that.
Right.
And then a friend of mine who actually went to school for animation, he recommended computer animation. And I was like, I had never even thought about that. Right. And I started looking at student reels and stuff. And that's when I went, this could be actually a lot of fun, because I always thought about the idea of acting too.
Okay.
And, I hate the idea of like memorizing lines and getting up in front of people, but I can move things and do it. So I ended up enrolling in school, and a month later I was knee deep in learning Maya and animations, and did that for 1.5 years straight.
Luckily, so you were dedicated. It was like it was like you were learning online, right?
Yeah.
You didn't go. Did you go back to a brick and mortar, or did you just learn online? That's amazing.
It was all from home. I didn't. Luckily, the severance pay from 9 years at Microsoft helped. My wife was super supportive.
Nice.
And helped out, and I just pretty much did animation for 18 months straight.
Killer. Very cool.
Yeah.
Can I ask why you went into, and this is kind of a cool part too, because that's kind of why I like getting people's background. I can see where that technical aspect of the systems engineer that you're a part of would help now, particularly being in games, because there's that technical and artistic. But
Right.
what made you mentioned earlier, you may possibly looking at Cal Arts, but it was too expensive, and then you went this route. What made you go the more technical route instead of continue the artistic one?
Oh, early on?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I did a couple of years of like studio art classes, painting, printmaking, photography, all kinds of art just for like 2 years straight. My goal was to be a starving artist in some big city somewhere.
Okay.
But then the school I went to didn't really have a good in-depth art program. I started getting into like commercial arts and graphic design, but the work I was doing at the time was computer drafting at a civil engineering firm.
Okay.
So that was my first career.
Okay.
Was doing drafting, and that got me into computers and technical side of things. And then I moved on to be like a web developer and stuff during the transition between the computer drafting, and Microsoft was doing like web development and getting my Microsoft certification, and then I ended up at Microsoft. So I did like lots of computer stuff
In
for
between.
that
Okay.
time.
So that kind of just where you were kind of laid out in the progress of life.
Yeah.
So this severance or the layoff actually kind of had to make a decision
choice.
here and where to go.
Reevaluate. Reevaluate. Like,
Gotcha.
and I was 41 at the time.
Okay.
And
Okay. Now I
it's
love this
amazing
part
to
too.
me.
Yeah.
I love this part too, because that's the other part about our industry too. Age is not an issue as far as being able to move a mouse around and learn and punch keys. You look at other professions where if you kind of get in late, it's very difficult. It could be more time on the body or something like that.
The NFL is out.
Yes, that's right.
NFL is out, but it's so true because I'm often on Twitter late at night, 1 a.m. or something like that, and some questions comes up. It's like, is it too late to start? Animation? And the fact that your story is that you took the step forward to get into animation. You made a big step. You were brave. You believed in yourself, and you knew like if you wanted something, you had to go for it. And the fact that you had support of your loved one, your wife, that too. I mean, say high five, give her a high five from us.
Yes.
Because that is amazing. But the fact that you did not let that stop you says something that So that's amazing. That's just.
Thanks. Yeah, every once in a while I see something either on like a Reddit thread about Maya, and someone asking, "Hey, I'm thinking about learning Maya and maybe getting into animation, but I'm going to school for this, and I feel like maybe I'm too old for it, and I'm already 23." So I'm thinking like I've made my decisions and I got to stick to it. And I'm like, what? So I ended up like replying back to him and going, forget about how old you are. This is like the rest of your life that you're planning to spend your waking hours pretty much doing this 8 to 10 hours a day. Why would you stop and settle at 23?
Right.
And I usually tell them my story and they just go, wow, yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Cool.
And then it usually get other people replying. And
so I want to ask quick questions. I'm just going to break the rules that usually we have said, but I'm having too much fun. It's 2020. We need to ask some real questions, right?
That's right.
Did you find or did you find that your age gave you an advantage, or was it like limiting you, or how did you feel? For if anyone that's a little bit older, or it's like, I don't know if I can do this, like. What is your mindset? What was going through your mind? Like, it's like, shit. Pardon my French. I'm not supposed to beat that out. Right?
Gotta edit now, Rick. Thanks. No.
Yeah.
I don't think it really ever came up. It was definitely noticeable. I mean, when I was taking my online class, it would have webcams for everybody, and I was definitely the oldest.
Yeah. You didn't dye the hair or anything.
Every once in a while. Back then, I didn't have any gray. Like this was all just
no one knows.
No one knew. And it never really came up. It helped that I had the computer background when people ran into issues like installing or Maya or questions about little technical things that I had just figured out. That helped. But the age thing, I don't think was ever an issue.
Can you produce it? That's what you're looking for. Can you learn? Can you grow? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the 20, 25 years of okay, of work history, right before that, I had already taught myself like web development. You know, a lot of computer programs that I had learned over the years and getting to Microsoft and all the stuff that I did there. And so picking up Maya and doing something new was just easy.
Oh, yeah.
Right. It's just, but so I had an advantage, I think, with that, but I think that's more about experience, not necessarily age.
Gotcha. That's a great question, though. Your ability to learn, though, it kind of boils down to that. And
and that only comes with experience.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
And therefore age.
Well,
there you go.
I still think that you had like that you really wanted to succeed, and that you really, like the fact you said you went 18 months straight.
Yeah.
Like you were focused, and that's kind of what I did when I I won't date myself, but I'm just throwing that out there.
It's okay.
But
I think I'm older than you.
I'll take it. But yeah, like dedicating yourself and not looking for the quick win thing. If I just do this and that's it, I'm going, like that you really were focused and you enabled yourself to succeed. And I think that is also something that says a lot, and why you're even here as one of our instructors.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Great point.
Yeah. It was funny when I first got into school, they were, it was actually a week behind or past the sign up time. So it was already like they were done with signups.
Yeah.
So I sent them an email trying to get in. So, hey, I'm trying to get into this next term that starts like in 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
They said, well, it's already past time, and it shows here on your application that you've never used Maya before. So you should really take this like springboard class to learn Maya, and then get into the animation courses. And I was like, no. I'm on a schedule, right? I am unemployed. I want to be out in 18 months. I don't have time to learn Maya. I got a few weeks before a class I could learn it. And they said, okay, well, cool. Download the trial of Maya, animate a bouncing ball, and send it to us by tomorrow at noon. And if you can do that, then we'll let you into the first class. Never even used Maya before. So I did a really, really bad bouncing ball. I was like looking up tutorials online and looking through instructions and stuff to figure out how to get anything to move. Finally got a really poor looking bouncing ball. And I spent like an hour trying to figure out how to export it. No idea what a play blast was. So I took my webcam and pointed it at the screen and just filmed it and said, here's my bouncing ball. And I sent it to them and they let me in.
Very cool.
The first class.
Right there.
It's really funny.
That's a gold nugget for the audience. That is a lesson right there. If you want something, you go for it. You
don't give up.
You don't give up, and you problem solve. And if you have to, you take a webcam and you film it.
I was like, I don't know how. I looked up like export, because I was looking up the wrong words to try to figure out
the wrong terminology. Yeah,
because I didn't know at the time. So it was really funny.
That's killer.
I love it.
So what was one of your first gigs out of school?
First one was working at 343 on Halo 4.
Okay,
that's a phenomenal gig.
That's pretty big deal coming out of your first. How did you get that one going?
It was really interesting. I had applied, and I think most students do this, and looking back, it was crazy, but I would still say do it anyway. I was applying to DreamWorks, Pixar, ILM, all the big studios. Probably, I think I'd listed off like 30 or 40 studios that I actually applied to. Never heard anything back from most of them. And the training that I went through was for film. So everything I tried at first was film. And then I started going, all right, well, maybe, cinematics in video games would be a good option for that. That's pretty close to film, I thought at the time. So I finally got hit up by a contracting agency who said that they were trying to fill a spot at 343 for a cinematic animation position. And they brought me in for an interview. And by the end of the interview, they said, well, I think we need more experienced person in this role, but it was great meeting you. By the way, we might have an opening on our gameplay team. Do you want me to go check to see if the lead is available to talk to you? And I was like, sure, yeah, why not? Yeah, let's talk. So we went and found him, and luckily he was available. So he came in. We just like chatted. He looked at my reel, and we talked about my past experience and what my favorite movies were. just real light, just trying to get you to know you kind of questions. And he was like, yeah, let's have you do a test. We'll have you do a test.
Very cool.
So he had me do like a walk cycle, a death, and then just some other animation of my choice. So I did it over the next few weeks, and it took like 3 months before I actually heard anything back. And luckily they were like, yeah, we're a little bit early before we were actually going to hire someone. So yeah, let's give you a shot.
Nice.
Just like, because if they were like a little bit more rushed, and I don't even think they had the job posted yet. The timing worked out.
You were looking at film. Did you have any reservations from going into games, or was it just, hey, look, this is a cool opportunity. I'm switching careers, period. This is a great opportunity to jump into this. How did you look at it?
I looked at it as a learning experience and something super exciting because I was a big Halo fan at the time. And I was like, holy cow, I get to work on Master Chief. And I thought, hey, animation is animation.
Right,
and I'll do this for a while. It was a 1-year contract, and then, we'll see what happens. Get me some experience.
Right.
Turned out I really liked it. Being able to do something real quick like that, get it in the game, play it, and actually like experience what you did instead
your
of
animation,
passively watch it. It was actually a lot of fun. I really liked the team. It was a new experience, and I've kind of been digging gameplay ever since.
Very cool. Now, were you already up in that area with Microsoft?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was
because they were in 343. Was in Kirkland at the time, and I was living over on the Seattle side, North Seattle side, Green Lake area. If you know the area at all.
No, sorry. No. I know it's at least in the same state. You don't have to, travel up from, East Coast to there, or from California up there. Right. So
there's no traveling.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Very cool.
Yep. And what do you think, like, really, what do you think made them like, so what do you think made them like you? And then what do you think in your animation tests made them say, let's give Victor a chance? I think that is important. What do you think? Just what's your opinion? Anything.
I would love to ask them that.
Well, let's assume, like, what was it? What do you think it was personality? And I'm going to lead up to something with this, but what do you think it was? Like, anyways. That's right. The tough questions.
It is. And a lot of this is just guessing, I guess. I mean, maybe it was just, I'm trying to put myself in their shoes. Someone that I was likable and wanted to work with me, kind of thing. And, maybe they liked that I said Empire Strikes Back was the better movie of the three at the time or something. I don't know.
You just alienated part of our audience here. Now there's going to be a debate. Yeah.
And when it's like turning up the volume, it's like, hey, I got something to say. No,
like,
but I think that's really important. Like something I've been explaining, at the studio, when I like to hire for my team is I'm looking obviously for the ideal talent, right? Their ideal skills, but I'm also looking for the right person, the right personality, and someone that is, if they're new and they're just starting up in the industry like yourself, is like, what are they willing to do, and how committed are they in doing great work? Because ultimately that will feed into the project, and that will feed into the team, and it's really important. So personality is very important, but also to show that you're not just thinking about yourself and your career, but you have a better, maybe you don't notice it, but you have a bigger picture of the impact that you have. And I think maybe that was what it was. Right. Like you were there, you were open to meeting for gameplay, right? You're a cinematics, like, hey, you interested for gameplay? And you're like, yes. He's open. I love that.
Right.
Like, let's say, what do you, talk, learn about you. Hey, he's a great fella. He's open. He's fun. Okay, let's do an animation test. And you said yes, and you did the test, and you put your heart into it, and you're like, hey, I'm going to make the best situation out of this. That to me is someone that I love having in my team, right? Yeah. But you can't let them know. Right. So anyone's like, hey, it's like everyone's like applying and sending me their work. It's like, hey, and you heard part of the trick, but it's important to know that you put your best you out there.
Yeah. And they were impressed by the career change. And I think that may have had an impact too. Like, this guy, considering his background, is getting into something completely different. Maybe that had something to do with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, like
Yeah,
I mentioned earlier, your technical background too. So you're talking about having a, Rick and I have talked with about the games industry where you're not just an animator, you're
Yeah.
Rick?
A game developer.
All right.
Yeah, game developer. Absolutely.
And that's that technical aspect of it as well. And so, yeah, coming from your background, I'm sure that was a value added there too.
Yeah. Totally.
So you said you were there for a contract for a year. Was it finish up there after that year, or was it renewed?
I started looking a few months before the end of the contract because I knew that unless they had an open full-time position, that it was going to end.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, they're like, no, we don't have a full-time open position. So I started looking. And just based off of my experience getting into that studio, I realized this is going to take a while going from job to job. It's not a fast process. I mean, like when I did the test, they were like, how long? I was like, how long do I have? And they're like, oh, a couple of weeks. And I got it done like in 4 days and sent it to them. And because I was doing nothing else, I'm just like, I need a job. I'm ready. And it still sat for, a month before I heard anything. So that's when I was like, started looking around, and I knew a guy that worked at Bungie, and I hit him up to see about an open position that they had. And he was like, yeah, apply, and I'm like, okay. So I applied and luckily got an interview at Bungie and another animation test. And
it's always a test. It's always a test. Yeah. Everyone knows that.
And then I did I got an offer about a month before the end of my contract at 343.
Okay.
And it was for another contract at Bungie. And they were also, they're in Bellevue. They're not far from where 343 was, so it was kind of convenient.
Can I ask a question here?
So I put in my notice to actually close the contract early just so I can go to Bungie. So
what is it in the games industry that would, you obviously had some work experience, you could show them your reel. Why the tests? Either one of you guys.
I think they want to see not only, you could do the animations that are on your reel, but they don't know how much work it went into it. And most of the stuff I had at the time was school, which means I had an instructor giving me feedback on it.
Gotcha.
Right? But they want to know, given, this stuff that we want you to do, this kind of walk cycle or this kind of death or whatever, and your turnaround time, how fast you do it, with their rigs, and they can see what the result is without seeing it as like student work, where that there's going to be an instructor involved and a lot of feedback and
so
I don't know what you think, Rick.
But what about from going from 343 to Bungie? Obviously Bungie would have seen that you had production experience,
I think that helped. I think
it helps, but it doesn't and like when you're when you have directors like super seasoned directors, it doesn't matter, right? Just because you have something nice doesn't mean it was purely you, right? Like Victor said, I want to know how much the animation was influenced by, the CG soup or the lead animator or the assistant director. That's question number one. Two, how well can you adapt? Like, so we're giving you a new rig to do a test. How actually can you adapt? Are you technical? Are you adaptive? Are you a problem solver? Right? When you go through a program, yes, you're going to get your reviews. You're going to get your animations. We're going to talk through you. We're even go inside the rig and show you like how to fix it. You're learning. But the question is, how much of that learning are you able to apply when you're on your own? Now you're on your own. Now I want to know exactly, where does your skill set stand today? Who are you today?
Gotcha.
When you were there, that was where you were at. And I believe I said this I posted on Twitter. You are actually, I want to know where your skills are at. So in your animation reel, you are not the best shot of your reel, but you're actually the worst shot of your reel. And that to me is the baseline of your skill set. This is what I expect to get from you. Your best shot is what I'm hoping to get from you. So I think for me, I know that now like everyone's like, wow, that sounds pretty straight on. But that's why we do an animation test when the animator has just started. For me, it's like anything under like 8 years is like I would start like at a starting level, right? To me, that's how when I'm bringing in any kind of artist, animator, lead soup directors, that is for me, 8 years is like a starting point. And that's what I look at. If like where are they at? And that's why we do the animation test.
Great. Okay. Yeah, I think it's a great question, because then when people are looking to get into the games industry, that they're prepared, they know what to expect and why. So yeah,
because they know that when a hiring manager is looking at a reel, they know that comes with a lot of feedback from other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that tells the student or the person applying that this is a good shot, right? But when you're working on your own shot to give for a test, you're saying, this is what I consider to be good. Mm. And when they're looking at it going, wow, this is what he thinks is good, then that's maybe he's not as good, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. No, that's great. Mm. So you mentioned you extended to 343 contract for something. What project was that for?
At Bungie?
Yes.
It was over Destiny, the first Destiny.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So you've got to work on some cool projects here right off the bat, huh?
Yeah.
I was looking at your reel. There was a lot of cool stuff from Destiny on there.
Yeah. They had a great process for doing like renders of all your shots, and they had watermarks to add to it. So they had a process like, if you left there with stuff that you want to show on your reel, you like put it all together. They give you a watermark to put on it. You put it into a folder, and then once the game releases, they can approve it and put it into an FTP share for you to go download later. And so it was all pretty much just ready for me.
Very nice.
And it was really easy. I knew like what shots I did to be able to like grab those shots.
Yeah. Let me ask you this side question, right? So I think, so you had your first year, right? Getting into the animation industry. I think what we often forget to ask, right? Because, some of us have been doing it much longer, is what was it like when you did an animation? Like what was the process? Like, did you like do the animation, try to polish it and then submit it? Was there because what I'm trying to get at is like, probably what you have learned over the many years is kind of some of the stuff that you're teaching, but did you just do an animation and say, here it's final, let's plug it in, let's put it in the game, or here it's final, I want my animation review? What was the steps, and how did it different from 343 and Bungie? Tough question.
Yeah, and it was a long time ago.
He's like true.
343 was really good about just like getting it into the game as fast as you could.
Yeah.
Right?
So did you just do like a blocking?
Same thing at Bungie. I felt like I was still, especially looking back now, I was still learning a lot.
Yeah.
Where I was used to trying to get to something close to done before I really showed it.
Yeah.
And at the time at Bungie, Rick Lico.
Yeah.
iAnimate instructor.
Lico, I miss you, brother.
Yeah. He was my lead at Bungie.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
He was very specific about what he likes and doesn't like.
I love the choice of word. I love the choice.
Yeah.
Specific.
He got better. He got better over the years.
Yeah.
But
expectations are high, man. When you're at big studio, yeah, but it's a challenge.
I learned really quick that
yes.
I need to start showing this stuff sooner.
Yes.
Because I would get far enough where he would go, yeah, and they would give me feedback on like core weight movement and like center of mass kind of movement.
Yes.
And I go, wow, I didn't even like notice that stuff, and I had to like go almost back to the beginning.
Right, yes.
Right. And that's when I really started to get into, all right, I need to start showing my stuff a lot sooner in the process. And not,
show often, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why we do reviews every week, in our class. Reviews are just as important as the lectures, right? So
yeah. So now it's like, that's when I learned, all right, just get the first blocking pass, get eyes on it. If possible, get it in game, see how it feels. At least have someone look at it and go, yes, go in the right direction, keep going, right?
And did you have it like shared between animators before showing it to your lead, or was it like, okay, you did it and then you showed it straight to your lead and get feedback?
Mostly it was just lead.
Yeah.
We did rounds and looked at everyone's stuff once a week.
Yeah.
But for each shot, it was mostly the leads.
What was the difference from working on something like Halo, which was an established franchise, to working on Destiny, which obviously had high expectations coming from the same studio that kind of launched Halo, but a unique IP? What was some of the interesting factors on that?
for me, knowing Halo, I could say this looks like Master Chief moving, this looks like a Grunt moving, or an Elite, and I had that background and experience with the game to know what the style is. Destiny didn't exist before, so all I had to go off of is what the other animators were doing and what Rick told me. Right, gotcha. I didn't have like a sample to go look at.
So how did you feel that? Because what Rick told you, like with your lead would tell you, is because you don't own the animation. How did it feel like you had to address and create a style that was more interested towards the director? Like when I get feedback, I always remind them, it's like even though I'm giving feedback, I know the shot, the game, the product, whatever I'm working on, it is for the it's for Ubisoft right now. It's for a Ubisoft brand and the Ubisoft group, because I don't own it, but I am thinking in consideration, speaking on the behalf, and I tell that to the teams, like, even though you might think it's great or it's good, it is not. It's not for us. It's for our fans, and and obviously for Ubisoft. Like, how did you feel about that? Was it something hard for you, or you just like? I mean, you came more mature, so maybe it wasn't.
This is my target. Yeah, this is I'm hitting it.
So how was it? I think that's something.
I think a lot of it was because I didn't have a style, an example other than other animations that were being done. Is a lot of the questions I would get asked by Rick was, how do you feel playing this animation? Like when you're playing it in game, does it feel powerful to you? Does it feel weighty, is strong? Is it something that you get satisfaction out of playing, or is it just going through the motions? Right.
Gotcha.
And I think a lot of it, and he was the one that taught me, get it in game, let's see how it plays. And he would say, when I was like, yeah, but it looks good in Maya. And he was the one that first told me, yeah, but your players aren't going to play this in Maya, right? They're going to play it while doing everything else in the game.
Yeah. Very funny.
Yeah, it was really funny.
So do you guys have, what do they call them? You've got where you can plug it in, the controller, and you can test it right there. Or do you guys got a different station? A dev kit. There you go.
Yeah.
So you have those at your desk and you're checking them out there too?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
All right. So how was that transition from going to, you go, hey, look, it looks good in Maya, but you're playing it here and it's not quite feeling the same way, but you're like,
that's when you start learning a little bit more about coming from, the film education, getting into the games, and you start learning about, okay, these things actually have to like blend and like break out at the right time and, have a right kind of responsiveness, but still have some sort of anticipation, right? It's kind of hard when you're going from the film animation of I want an anticipation on this move that's 20 frames long. It's like, yeah, that's not going to work in a game, right? Because you need to be able to hit the button and have stuff happen, be responsive. Do
you find yourself being really creative then, trying to figure out a way to make it still feel like it's the traditional animation that gives that anticipation, but not being able to do it over 20 frames,
That took a while for it to beat into my head.
Okay.
That I learned a lot there by seeing how it actually plays in game and that responsiveness when, I can't have that take that long.
Gotcha.
Right. And also, the great other animators and Rick and everyone giving me feedback and showing me how it all works. And that's when you start making the transition into being not just an animator, but a game dev.
Gotcha.
Right. It's when you make that transition. Yeah, but how is this going to work in engine? Blend with the other, blend spaces and aims and everything else that's happening on the animation. It's not just yours, right? It's usually many animations playing on top of each other.
Right. Yeah.
So
now what was the lifespan of that game for you?
That was a year as a gameplay.
Okay.
And then that contract ended and I started looking around a little bit more. And I started talking to a studio that I later went to. But they called me back at Bungie to come back to work on their cinematics team.
Okay.
For 6 months.
Very cool. Was that a difficult transition, having to work in games for 2 years and
shaving off frames? And
they're
like more anticipation, man. More anticipation.
They're like, hey, we need you to add like finger animations and like details, because they saw that I was super like detailed on the gameplay stuff I was doing, and they thought, oh, you could do cinematics, so they had me do like finger stuff and like cleanup, mocap cleanup.
Gotcha.
And stuff. Then I also got into doing a lot of, they had a different team that did animations that didn't fall into player and that didn't fall into cinematics, but it's more like doors opening, machinery falling, things that
Triggered
needed
events.
animation. Yeah. Like there was
Non-character animation, just props
exactly.
and
Like little robots
vehicles.
flying around or stuff like that. So I got into that for a while, and that was really cool because I got to work more with like VFX and design side of things.
Okay, very cool.
That was a lot of fun. And then when that ended, that was like 6 months for that.
Okay, so about 2.5 years in the games part of this here. Were you feeling like you were getting your feet settled there?
Under you,
yeah.
It was starting to. Yeah, it was
Okay.
starting to go. Okay, I'm digging this. I can do this.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
felt like that was the path. Now I'm
and I think that's when when did we meet? Didn't we meet during your time at Bungie? Because I remember. I think this is when I was talking a lot with Lico, and I think your name did come up. So I think like maybe I wasn't supposed to say that, but it's okay. You're a great guy, man. I love you. But
met,
but like
I think it was 2015 that we met.
Yeah, okay.
I would have been at Bungie.
Yeah.
2013 to almost 2014.
Yeah. Okay.
Because then after that, I spent 6 months at Sledgehammer.
Sledgehammer, yeah.
Working on Call of Duty, and then 6 months at Crystal Dynamics on Rise of the Tomb Raider.
Like, what a great, look at these titles,
I know.
Man.
Yeah.
Like,
now Dave Hubert was leading the team on that Rise of the Tomb Raider, right?
No, I don't think he was there at the time.
Okay.
Oh wait, he was at Canada, right?
Yeah, he was at Montreal studio taking care of the cinematics.
Okay, maybe that was what it was. Okay,
yeah. So maybe when you were there doing the gameplay, the cinematics perhaps didn't start.
Yeah, I remember hearing of that studio and seeing the results, but I didn't interact with them at all.
Okay, but another cool franchise. I mean, this is iconic in the games industry. So, any unique perspective on working on that game? And it was a very different vibe for it too.
Yeah, for
Rise of the Tomb Raider.
That was cool because I didn't do gameplay so much. They had this one team called what was it? SRL, the SRL team. It's the Smart Resourceful Lara.
Okay,
for Lara Croft, and it was all those little scenes that they weren't cinematics, but they were non-player controlled scenes. Is when you walk down a corridor and Laura steps on a trigger that triggers a trap, right? You take away the player control while this thing is dropping from the ceiling, and it goes into slow-mo, and the player reacts, and you have to like shoot, and then she does this like, oh, I got to be careful going forward, and that those little moments where she's being smart and resourceful, that the player doesn't have control, but it's not a cinematic, right?
Okay,
it's a scripted event, it's like a scripted event that gives you just a little bit, like something happens, she falls, and gives you a little moment of control. Yeah, right?
There's a part that I did where you're swimming underground, like this under tomb area, walkways above you, and you're in the water, and you're controlling her going through, but then it cuts to the other side as she's going underneath something and holding it, and then she looks up and the camera moves up to a guy that's screaming at her and like ready to shoot her, and then she goes underwater and she swims, and all that time you're not really in control, but those are the parts that I did.
Very cool.
Did it feel like, were you trying to trick the player that they were in control, or it was like, do you think you were able to trick them, or
no? I don't think we were trying to make them feel like they had control. It was just mini short cinematics between gameplay that kind of helped you transition from one spot of the game to the next.
And that was what studio was that one?
Crystal Dynamics.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
So now, were you there for?
It was a 6-month contract. They were talking about extending it, and then I got a full-time offer from Red 5 Studios.
Okay.
Before Crystal was Sledgehammer on Call of Duty on their multiplayer team.
So you've got to work on multiple first-person shooters, third person?
Third person with Tomb Raider.
Uh-huh.
All the animations I did for Destiny were third person or full body player animations, not first person view model animations, if that makes sense.
Is there any challenges with working in first person, just out of curiosity, or is it you find it easier because you're very limited in that, but are you still trying to make it feel like?
It's a little limiting, but it's also super. It has to be really, really good. The quality bar is higher.
Okay.
Because the player is going to see so much of that.
Okay.
And it has to be, that's the part of the system that if a player is going to get motion sick, it's going to be the first person animations that's going to do it, right? So, and every little thing, like reloading the weapon, if there's a weird pop or some weird spacing issue, it's going to show up every single time they do that. And it's not going to get hidden in a run cycle while you're doing something else and VFX exploding and other things going on. It's going to be on front of your screen, that whole time. No pressure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did a couple of weapons on Call of Duty and a few on Halo. Tomb Raider didn't have a view model like that.
Now, so where are you at right now, if you don't mind me asking?
Right now, I'm at Amazon Game Studios.
Okay. Anything you could talk about that you're working on, or?
Well, they've released a lot of information about it, and it's been in alpha for a while, and people have played it. It's currently still under an NDA.
Okay.
But they have released trailers. It's called New World. It's like a MMORPG kind of game.
Very cool. Working on a new IP again. Any new challenges with this one? Is it on PC or is it going to be next gen?
PC.
Okay.
They run on the Lumberyard engine.
I've heard of it. It's their own game development, right?
Amazon bought CryEngine 4 or 5 years ago, and then the studio that I work at, that is now Amazon Games, used to be Double Helix.
Oh yes, Double Helix, yes.
And when Amazon bought them, got everyone as part of the deal. I started there a year after they bought it. Been there for 4 years now.
Okay,
started there as a contract too. So Red 5 was the first full-time employee position that I had.
Nice.
My 5th studio in my 5 years, first full-time gig.
Okay.
But that lasted 11 months because then they went under.
Yeah. But I think something quick, if Larry, you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
Just jamming. Something I think it's really interesting is that you did a lot of contract work, right? And I think there's a huge advantage of that because you weren't comfortable and it made you always stay on top of your game. But I didn't want to give the answer or my own answer, but what do you think was the advantage of doing so many contract works? So what was in your mind when you said, okay, I have 6 months, am I there just to work, or did you have a goal in mind or something in mind?
Mostly there to get the stuff done that needed to get done.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, always in the back of your head going, is this something I could put in my reel?
Yes.
Right? That constant kind of keeping your feelers out, looking to see what other jobs are open, seeing what other people are out there looking. It was weird when I finally got into Amazon, and I was there for 2 years before I stopped looking for other jobs. But yeah, you're right. And when you're in that kind of short term, you're only there for 3 months on a 6-month contract, and you start looking for your next gig because that's how long it takes.
Yeah. So did you have a habit example? I'm trying to recall back when I started. Right. It's I would do my animation, but I would do my animation, exactly what was asked for. I tried to do my best. But at the same time, I have not only I want to do my best to show them, I'm doing I'm a good animator and that they're happy, but I'm also I want great stuff on my reel, you know? So that really, I actually would work even more, and I was even hungrier to learn. And I mean, that's why I'm here today. Cause I was so hungry, and I always doesn't matter what challenge is in front of me, I will solve it. Right. Someone's it can't be done. I was whoa, let me try. It's I had that even today. That is why, I get to do what I get to do, is like challenges is something. It's like a goal. Like how can you do something great from this situation? Like
Right.
like is that, did you feel like you had that too, or is
I
there
did
something
spend some
you
extra
could-
time polishing stuff that I really was like, this is the kind of shot that I want on my reel. It's not just like a 15 frame transition or something, but something that was a little bit longer and felt good. I was like, I'm going to polish this just a little bit more than I need to, just because it's the kind of thing I want to put on my reel.
Yeah. I mean, I still that do today, even today,
Yeah.
as like there's some things I'm working on. Like I show how it comes from an idea. Like, this is a piece of, I can't show the paper I have here, but it's just, I almost like, look, and then you had to put a big censorship, but like from start to finish, even today, been doing this for a long time. I have like zero white piece of paper to the idea, to the creative briefs, to the reference, to the prototyping, to, when I'm on set, and final results. You can see the evolution of my work, but I collect it. And I'm always thinking like, what would be great to have on my reel, just to show. I mean, now, I'm I'm fortunate to have, a good reputation and the skills, but I still think about that. And do you think you still think about that even today, or it's like, what? Hey,
not as much as I used to.
Yeah.
Going contract to contract, I did a lot.
Yeah.
But like I said, it took a couple of years to stop looking for a job and actually like settle down and just go, all right, I'm going to be here for a while.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I still think about, would this be the kind of thing I want to put on my reel? Yeah, I don't think that ever goes away. Yeah. Like even you, like you said, like you don't really even need to worry about that anymore, but you still think about it.
Yeah, I love collecting. I have a hard drive right there, like full of cool stuff that I've been working on.
Cool.
I'm like, I just want to share it. Every now and then, I'm like, don't tweet it.
Yeah, I have a bunch of old stuff that I've never put on a reel, but I still have, just because. Yeah, it's just stuff that I like to look back on.
Anything you guys are doing unique with this new world in the development that you've not had to do before?
To talk about?
Right. I'm just thinking that you haven't had to do before on some of these other projects, because we're hitting new stages and such. Yeah, we don't want to get you in trouble, so yeah, that you can talk about.
Yeah, there's trying to think if there's anything that falls into that, and or can I talk about it? A lot of it, I think, has to do with just learning how it works with a lumberyard.
Okay.
It's a different engine, I have yet to work at a studio after 6 studios that actually works on Unreal, which is kind of weird.
Okay.
That is,
if you can believe that. Every single studio I've worked at has been some proprietary, unique game engine. Which
again kind of goes back to, just like I said, even your background of having to figure stuff out, being technical on that end,
Yeah.
And even if someone doesn't have a technical background, just the ability to learn and be
pick up something new and just learn how to Google, and just search for other stuff. People have learned this before and have probably written something about it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Now, so you said that you've been there for 4 or 5 years?
4 years, yeah.
4 years. You're one of our instructors. This is, I think, your second term here.
Yep.
What are you enjoying now about teaching and taking it from a student to a professional and now as an instructor?
The thing that I loved about my first term is like, we get the high level. Here's kind of a rough outline of a curriculum, right? But we're not going to tell you what to do for every lecture, right? Trying to like come up with my plans and like what I want to show, what am I going to talk about, what video examples am I going to show, what do I want to animate for an example, that I think is something that they would also want to learn.
Right.
And like, all right, so if I'm going to teach someone about poses, what makes a strong pose? What makes a strong pose? I need to go figure out myself. Like, what is it? How do you, like, I know by looking, but how do you explain that?
Right.
Or how do you explain what, the process of doing a run cycle or a death or hit reaction or something. So it's a lot of like making sure I understand it enough to be able to teach it, which was a pretty good experience. It was I actually learned a lot going through the process myself.
Very cool.
And it made me look at my own animations and go, is that pose as strong as it could be? Or is that pushed as much as it could be?
Nice.
What would I do if this was one of the students, what would I say?
Yeah. What I like about that is
a different look. Yeah.
That's what I was saying. Yeah. What I like about that is that even at your stage, you're going, how can I make this better? It's never that point of it's good enough or I've arrived. It's even looking at our own stuff and just constantly trying to push ourselves as artists and to make things look better.
Or even, how do I make this better? But how would I explain this to someone else to make it better? Right? It's that getting it out of your own head and getting it down kind of like on paper kind of thing of how do I get this across in a way that makes sense to the student so that they can actually improve.
Yeah, because that is key, right? So when a student, starts his professional career, the communication is for any director. When I'm like training directors, I was like, communication is key. Efficiency on how you communicate is also key. And that's something that, at iAnimate is like we always talk about. It's like we want to give the student the best, the best review, the best experience. And one is teaching them, how to receive critique. And one is learning how to give that student the type of critique that will help them grow. And the fact that, when before bringing Victor on board, we had many talks and we went through the program and that is something that is important at iAnimate, is that it's not just like, hey, you need to fix this and that's it. It's like, how can you explain it to someone, but make sure it resonates where they comprehend and they know how to fix it and how to learn from it. So, okay, I learned that your weight is not there because of, the spacing of your cog or, the controller that's going to drop. It goes down too fast and it stops. It just needs to, needs to ease in a little bit more, but have a little bounce at the end.
Right.
So if you like, how do you communicate that? Because it's easy for, when we're looking at something, it's like, it doesn't work, I would fix it. And, nanoseconds, you just like, click, 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 click. And you're like, see, fix. Like I love to go on it. Yeah, that's how sometimes I love to do at Ubisoft. I will like walk the floor. I'll sit with the animator. It's like, hey, I try to explain it. I'm like, here, let me show you. Like if I like exactly how I animate. I say, here, let me show you. Let me drive. I'm going to bookend here, key. I'm going to bookend here, key, delete. Few keys. I'm going to time scale this, put it here. Now you can look at I tell them how to read curves. So I was like, read the curve, man. You can read the curve. You can read the curve. You can read the matrix, and then I'll fix it. And then while I'm fixing it, I explain, this is how the weight of the character would be in this project. Maybe it would be like Rainbow Six or other things that we're working on. But that came from, being a habit of, directing and doing critiques and reviews, but also a lot of it came from teaching at iAnimate and going through work, not just my own, but other animators' work and like explaining to them, how do you make a shot better and why? Why does it make it better? Not it's like, this is how you do it, but why does it make it better? And how can you never forget this? And then you can bring this into, be industry ready. So
yeah, it's the how part that's interesting, because like you can say, need to like push this pose more or make it feel heavier. But from the student side, they're like, okay, but what does that even mean? How do I do that? Right. That's when you have to go, let me show you the curves, see how the curve's moving. This is why if you move this here, offset this here or whatever, this is how it totally changes things. And there's that showing them what you're saying rather than just saying it. Because even the leads I've had in the past would give me feedback on a shot and say, oh, you need to push that pose more. And I'm like, which one? How much? I don't know what you're talking about.
What frame? Can you tell me the frame, please?
What frame you want?
Yeah.
And you're teaching them which workshop for games?
Workshop 1.
Okay, so that's great. So you're getting them right off the bat. We obviously have a Games Workshop intro or 0 that kind of is getting them involved, but you're hitting from the ground floor on that.
Right.
So now, is there anything that you've noticed consistently with people coming into Games Workshop 1 that they're really
what have you noticed?
Yeah.
before
kind of consistently. I mean, I know from person to person there's going to be different levels, but consistently, what have you noticed?
Like things that students struggle with?
Yeah.
I try to push for right now at this stage, at Workshop 1, like here's the reference. Make sure you have the reference and a solid reference. And if I'm looking at your animation, I'm looking at the reference and the main poses don't match, And I go, okay, they go, well, I'm trying to go for a different style. And I go, cool, but at least the poses should be, the timing should match like what you're trying to do. And maybe if you want to push a pose, that's cool, but you got to have that core movement correct.
Working, yeah.
Right. I see
like
a lot of people,
right?
Yeah, I see a lot of people go from blocking where they have, like, say on a run cycle, where they have that passing pose, high pose, contact pose, low pose, push off pose, right? And they go through the whole thing. And if you go just like frame to frame, it looks good. But when they make that next step to the next one, they start working on the feet, and then they start working on the arms. And they're like, why is my head moving all over the place and it's going back and forth too much? And I go, yeah, you got to look at the core, right? That hip movement in the middle, that's kind of like moving everything else.
Yeah.
Right. And they kind of skip over that working from the inside out.
Okay.
Where they try to start polishing too soon. Right. Instead of working on the core poses and the core movement and the weight. Because, just today's review that I had, it's a lot of, the core needs to be fixed. So I fix it, but then the knees are popping and the feet aren't right because that needed to be done first. Right.
That's it. Okay. Here's my next question then. What's your workflow? Is that how you work? You're hitting the center cog here where you're getting the hips and you're getting that motion working well. Or you're looking at it more
I usually do like a straight ahead pose to pose animation style.
Okay.
Where I try to hit, and I won't do just it depends on how complicated the animation is. I always try to get a reference, like either from online or myself shooting my own reference. I mean, like this tripod back here is like always there.
It's right there.
Yeah.
Camera's here.
And I even told the students that if you don't have a tripod, get a tripod. You will use it for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Right? That one is 25 years old.
Nice.
But I will work usually pose to pose straight ahead. And if it's a super complicated animation, I could even do it like on 2s or on 3s and try to get every contact or weight shift or low. And I look at the cog and look for like
the details,
where it drops and where it goes up and where something starts to turn. And I try to grab each of those poses as I go. So it may take longer to go through the entire thing, but once it's done, you can play it and it is pretty much, almost done.
Gotcha.
And then I'll go in and then I'll look through the curves and try to get things to work smoothly. And I work from the inside out. The same thing I tell my students. I work on that center of mass kind of movement and then worry about what the arms are doing later and then what the feet are doing later.
Nice. Yeah. And that just works. That's a great workflow. I was had a shot here recently and I was working on it and I just was struggling with it. My brother's like, hey, look, just get the hips and everything else kind of working there, the body, then you can work on the head after and, but get that working first. And then once you get the movement on that, then the hands start coming into play and, but you got to get that foundation working right. Otherwise you're animating arms and head, that's not going to work yet.
Yeah. I see a lot of instructors that actually do layered approach. And it's awesome. It works for them. I can't do that. Like you see them like character in a T pose.
Right. Yeah.
And they're like running and they work on the hip, doing the motion of the hip.
Right.
Doing this with the run. And then they go, okay, when we do the legs and they get the legs working in, doing this with the run. And I'm like, I can't do that. I got to do the entire thing.
I got to see something more in there. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's funny because I don't know. To me, it's everything, the way we animate, and that's something very important. And I always say like to the students, like, you're going to learn how your instructor animates. There's different ways to animate.
Yeah, this is not the way.
I want you to take every skill set and when you take every learning and put it in your pocket, right? Straight ahead, animate on 2s, animate on 3s, animate on layers, animated on just like, I'm going to do just my Z from here, from frame 0 to frame whatever, example 30. If it's a run cycle, move it from here. I know my distance because the designer said that's the distance we need to do in that time, right? Or maybe it's on 24 frames, but you adjust it. And then I'm like, great. Now I do my up and downs. Everyone has a way to animate. And I animate actually every different way, depending on, I don't animate as much as I used to, but I would animate every single way, depending on the shot,
Right.
depending even on how I feel and whatever, music I'm listening to that day. So sometimes I'm like something a little chill. So I'm like, what, I'm just going to just go, translation first, little rotation. Okay. But the fact that you said, like, this is how I animate 2s and 3s, very, very close to film, film is, you animate on 2s, 3s, or 1s, 2, and 3s, sometimes 4s, rarely. Cinematics, a lot of animators would animate on 5s, just key every 5 pose, every 5 frames, and then kind of figure things out. But it's great that you said, hey, this is how I animate.
Right.
And then we want you to learn how he animates. And when you go to the next instructor, maybe the animate's similar, or you might like, wow, there's a whole different
totally
way.
Different. Yeah.
Yes. And you can look at them like, wow, this is great. And this is great. How did they get there?
Yeah.
Or how much of this can I use and how much of this can I use to create my own workflow?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And
even how you use reference, the way to use reference. Like I have a very, very, precise way. I want to say precise. I have many ways of using reference, but just how you use reference is, to me, it makes a difference. And I know how to adapt to each realization director or animator when they use reference. So it's like, how do you use it? Okay. Then I'll explain what I want or what is needed or what's not working accordingly to their style. So I think that's great.
Yeah.
Very cool. And like you said earlier too, from shot to shot, that may change a little bit depending on how chaotic the shot is, or a little more subdued.
There are some shots that I've done that I didn't shoot the reference, but I knew the overall motion that I was going to have, like it's just from my head. So I would do like an anticipation pose. And I want this pose because it's going to be held just for a few frames. I want this pose to be awesome. So I just work on that pose. And then I know the impact pose, what it's going to be like. So I'm going to work on that pose and just have like those two.
And then
so I know
work between them.
And then I'll figure it out other stuff out later.
Nice.
But I know that I want this to be strong and this to be strong. And I go, cool. Now I got to figure out how I'm going to get from here to here. And that's when I go shoot reference and I start experimenting with different moves. And maybe something needs to shift, but I kind of have an idea of what direction it wants to go, or at least what I want to hit, like those main silhouettes, those strong poses.
Right.
Get the reference done, and then I can like move stuff around to get it to flow right.
Very nice.
Yeah, it totally depends on the shot.
Yeah. Question, like compared to when you were starting animation, like do you ever just start off like, I'll just animate.
How to see where this goes.
Yeah. Do you do that now?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. More confidence though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I'm just going to go here. And then I go, what would he do after this? And then I'll do this and I'll change it and move around and then maybe cut it all up. I don't know. Yeah, I still do that.
But I do like that with more confidence though. You're going to figure it out.
Yeah. And I know, you don't start kind of blocking stuff out and then you don't start offsetting keys and like putting extra keys here and there. You got to keep it simple, like even in the beginning, even if you're doing like making it up as you go kind of thing, as long as it's simple enough that you can easily go to that pose where everything is keyed and change it. And, and you're not trying to figure out what's happening and like fight against the curves. And, that's when it starts to get a little confusing and then you start fighting your own creativity.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Is there anything that's exciting you about the games industry presently?
Nothing.
No.
Okay,
so we're going to cut this one here. Let's go to the next question here.
I can't believe I still do this.
Yeah.
I think the way engines are, it used to be like you would just go, yeah, this animation blends to this animation, right? And you set that all up. And you say, okay, blend over 3 frames or 4 frames or 6 frames or whatever. And then you just see what it looks like. And that's what you go with. The way that like AI has progressed and like motion matching and the way you could just like throw information at an engine is let it figure it out. You just kind of give it a direction, you give it all the data, and it, kind of figures out how to get it all to blend together. That stuff is amazing to me.
Very cool. I know Rick's mentioned that before, so yeah, I'm not.
Man. Yeah. The fact that, yes, when you see it right now, many times we look at it, it's like, oh, that's amazing. I'm like, amazing. Imagine what you can do. Like that's where I'm like, Yes, it's amazing. Who cares? But now watch what we can do.
Yeah, but what can we do with that?
Yeah.
You want me to tell you? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I really want to say so much. Like,
yeah, I think I actually watched another podcast, a previous one that you guys did, where you did the same thing. You're like, I so want to talk about it, but I can't.
God, like you can alter performance.
Yeah.
you can craft.
To totally be able to craft the experience.
Yes,
from
you're hearing
from the gameplay side, like from the engine.
Yes.
Without even messing with the animations.
You can craft an experience from the game side that can influence the story of the character.
Yep.
Just think about that. You should ask another question before I start saying all these things.
I knew I was opening a Pandora's box with that question.
God,
but
you can do so
let's
much.
Hang out later and talk.
Yeah.
It's like okay, example, right? Layered animation.
Yeah.
20 something years ago when it was like Ailey's Wavefront and stuff like that, when like barely any layer animation there. Max 3D Max, whatever you use, 3D Studio Max, but it wasn't even called 3D Studio Max. It was 3D Max. Like when layer was approached, like you can just alter an animation and just fix it. Then we took layer and say, hey, we can blend through the layers of animation. And then we are like, hey, we can blend through layers of animation in real time. Now, if you look at that curve of how you can manipulate and control that at a basic, simple level, now, if you understand that, you can start to comprehend what you can do with AI. I'll leave it like that.
He's like,
just like that. Just my that's what that really excites me, And there's so much.
That's the part of the future that I think is really interesting.
That the future is knocking on the door.
Yeah,
I'm just saying it's knocking on the door. The question is who is going to do it. All right, Larry, I'm gonna stop, man. You guys got.
I'm gonna get you in trouble, huh?
You're gonna get me in trouble. It's like, why are you teaching everyone the tricks? It's iAnimate, baby.
That's right.
Okay.
Any favorite games that you got to work on, or any favorite games you would love to have worked on?
I really enjoyed Destiny.
Okay.
Tomb Raider. Halo.
New World you're working on. Yeah.
Call of Duty.
I mean, these are like all like mega titles.
Yeah, everything I've worked on. I've enjoyed everything I've worked on.
That's killer.
The stuff I wish or that I would have liked to work on are things like, God of War was just so fun to play. Spider-Man, Horizon Zero Dawn. Those kind of experiences.
Gotcha.
Really, right? It was just they just felt so good. Throwing that axe and what they went through to get that in God of War. And when you watch the talks about what they put into that to get that to work and the iteration involved. All right, that would have been a fun experience.
Gotcha.
To go through that.
So a long story short, a fun career transition, huh?
Yeah, it's been good so far.
Well, Victor, we really appreciate you having you on this podcast, and again, even having you as one of our instructors.
Sure.
I know one of the parts that makes iAnimate unique is our instructors are handpicked. It's people that we've known and worked with. It's not just anybody who's kind of come in and say, I can animate, or I could, here's what I've done. It's there's a neat collaboration of our instructors and tight knit aspect of it, and so it's really neat having you in here, and it's an opportunity for us to trust artists like you to teach the next generation. So
cool,
killer having you on this podcast, but again as an instructor as well.
Great. Thank you, man. I'm enjoying the hell out of it.
Awesome. All right, well, thanks very much, and with that,
all right,
we're out. Cool. All right.
Yeah.